Good evening. I hereby announce that pursuant to Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in the notice which was sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, and posted on the bulletin board in Township Hall, and filed in the Township Clerk's office on January 3rd, 2023. Mayor Lucarelli,
Here.
Mr. Impreviduto,
Here.
Mr. Bontempo,
Here.
Mr. Foster,
Here.
Ms. LaMountain.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Wendy. Can we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Good evening, everyone. We did not have an executive meeting tonight which was nice. So we can move right to the consent agenda items. I would like to open it up for public comments or questions on consent agenda items only. Do I have anyone in the audience this evening that would like to come up? This is the 2023-171 through 2023-180 resolutions that are classified under the consent agenda. At this time, you can make a comment or ask a question on those items only. Yes, sir.
Does that include the capital budget?
No, sir.
Oh,
Oh, wait, it does include, is that for but the ordinance is going to be a separate public hearing?
It's just on introduction tonight, Mayor. Certainly nothing will be adopted tonight if comments made during the public comment period at the conclusion of the meeting.
So his questions on the
On the ordinances.
it's on the consent. It says the capital budget amendment. That's not the budget. That's an amendment. So there's no comments tonight, right? It's not part of the public hearing. It's just an introduction, right?
Yeah. Just explain for the public what the two are.
So there's a resolution on the agenda that is an amendment that's proposed to the capital budget, as the administrator outlined at a previous meeting. As part of the budget process in New Jersey, there is a 6-year budget that is attached to it. However, that's not a definitive capital budget, because that's typically dictated by how the committee elects to bond. The committee does have 2 bond ordinances that are listed on the agenda for introduction. I believe there's going to be some discussion pertaining to them, and introduction is first reading. It would be up for final adoption in a public hearing in July, if they're introduced tonight.
So, I guess his. Yeah, so I'll say yes if you would like to make a comment on that. You can more than welcome to come up at this time if you would like.
All right, my name is Jim Licato. I live at 57 Duxbury Court. I'm in the Palmer Square community. So I understand that this is an amendment and it's regarding paving. I forget what else was on there. But one of the things, and actually first I wanted to publicly thank Mrs. LaMountain. I had a chance to meet with her this weekend in regards to the flooding issues we've had on the north side of town, particular Palmer Avenue and the Middle Road areas. We've been dealing with the situation. I know you already know it's for quite a long time. We're now into another study that's ongoing. I understand, it's not, there's no results yet from it. There was a lot of information that was provided from the previous Rutgers study. There's, I guess, information that T&M is aware of. It's pretty clear, what some of the things need to get done. And what I'd like for the committee to consider is adding monies to the capital budget to address the flooding and the flooding issues that we have. So that's one of the things that I'd like you to consider at this point. I mean, I'd like it to be more than a request. I really want the committee to take action. I understand that a lot of you are fairly new, and we got in touch with Ms. LaMountain in hopes that we can educate everybody again. You have to understand how frustrating it is that every time we get new committee members, we have to re-educate everybody on what the situation is. Everybody knows how bad this is. We have a gentleman that's back there, Mr. Tetro, who I'm hoping is going to come up as well. I've sent you photos. He sent you photos, Mr. Delaney. I've never met Mr. Delaney, so I'm not sure. Hi, how are you? You know, it's a very serious situation. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when somebody's going to get hurt or somebody's property is going to get damaged. This is an opportunity. Please put some monies into the capital budget, and that way we know that you're ready to take action. You can even do something as simple now as clearing some of the blockages. You know, that's not something that you have to wait for the stormwater management study to be completed in order for you to take advantage of. Any little bit could help us at this point, but this is severe. It's several times a year. The raising of the road on Palmer Avenue, while it helps to allow for cars to get through and emergency vehicles to get through, it only masks the problem, and it only dumped more water back into the creek. My community, we have a lot of erosion in the back of our community. We had extensive damage to a detention basin. Some of my neighbors are losing access to their property. Mr. Tetro's got a moat around, you know, or whenever we have a couple of inches of rain. It's not even a severe storm. So please, take action and put some monies into the capital budget. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on consent agenda items this evening?
Mr. Mayor, Committee, I'm Joseph Tetro from 280 Middle Road. One was to ditto what Jim had said about the problem, if we could do something to put some money into account for this. I mean, you people, today, this rain that's coming, does any of you pay attention to what's happening? I'm on watching TV all the time because I gotta know how much rain is coming down. If I get 2 or 3 inches of rain, the back of my yard floods out, and it's only getting worse. I've gone to Hazlitt's meeting, I went to the Stormwater Committee, you know, and then I went to their committee meeting, and I brought this before them, and their remark to me was, we have plenty of areas in Hazlitt that floods. I mean, that doesn't help me. It's part on Holmdel's property and Hazlitt where we have a blockage. I've been in contact several times with Mrs. Thompson from the Mosquito Commission. You know, I spoke to her again the end of last week, and she said she was going to try to come out this week to look at it and bring someone else out. You know, it just keeps stalling and stalling. I mean, Holmdel started doing this in 2007 for me. T&M, I mean, I brought this up many times before. T&M did work on it, that we were supposed to try to straighten up the stream and get it to go back the way it did back in the 70s. They sent me right of entry and everything. When the time came, they couldn't get down there to clean it. And then again in 2015, they tried to do it again, and they still didn't do anything. And meanwhile, the stream is now diverted over by Lee Acadia Court to where the municipal building is in the town hall, not the town hall, the public works are. I've had their superintendent come out and look at it, you know, and he says, you know, we can try to go down with men and clean it, but, you know, it's beyond our control. But somebody's got to take issue on this and help me out here, you know. I mean, I look at these and I'm wondering when I'm going to get hit with a big storm like this and wind up wiping my house out. North Jersey had almost 6 inches of rain within an hour or so. You know what that will happen if it comes to us. Between Palmer Square going to get flooded up there, and then it comes down to me. By the time it rains up at this end of Holmdel, 2 hours later, I get it down by me, and all that rain. So I'm just trying to get something, if you can just work along with me to try to get something done, even to reach out to the Mosquito Commission. Like Jim says, it's not more than simple cleaning some of the stream at this point without redirecting it back the way it used to go, you know. But
Mr. Tetra,
That's right.
when they did the stream last time, did it help alleviate any of the issues?
Excuse me?
When they did the stream cleaning last time, did it alleviate any of the issues?
Well, they got on my property, they cleaned my brush out, but they never went down like into Holmdel's and Hazlitt's side. You know, it helped then, but now there's blockages down there, I can see them, you know. I've taken photos of it, and now it's very hard even to see them with an aerial shot and kind of the trees growing over. But the water table is raising now because it's not draining. And now, before when it came over Middle Road, it came down my driveway and used to wash my driveway out and go out the back. But now it's starting to come in from the back because it can't drain out the way it's supposed to. And we got Maria's Court's ward coming into my property, and then you got these new townhouses going up on Middle Road and Laurel Avenue. Their detention pond, they'll tell me that's gonna help, but their water comes down to this little ditch behind these houses on Middle Road and Arnold Walter Nursing Home. Their culvert underneath is 3/4 buried underwater right now without water going into it. So what's gonna happen when we get a flood in there? I mean, that end will flood. I mean, I'm not too concerned with that end flooding. I'm worried about it getting down to my house, you know, but I mean, these are things that gotta look at. I don't know when that was cleaned the last time in that area, you know, but,
It's been a while, I think.
yeah, but thank you very much for listening.
No, you're welcome. And I understand your frustration. I know for years that you've been coming to meetings, and I do recognize the other gentleman there from Palmer Square. The only thing that I could say to you now is that it's been part of my meetings that I had with our administrator. It's been a priority for us to get this damn study that we're still waiting on done. But it's not about just the study, but it will help us understand, because unfortunately it's part of a bigger problem in
Right.
town. So that the good thing about this study is going to help us understand all of the drainage issues, and then how we can address it by the time it comes to where you live. And unfortunately, there's so much that drains into that area. I know Committeewoman LaMountain had offered to meet and to get some more feedback and be a little bit more of a conduit to the committee, and that just started, which I appreciate, and that will help again relay that information back to administration, to myself. And the only thing that I could really say to you right now is that we'll continue looking into this, and I will. One of the main things that we've already discussed during this budget, cycle, was how we need to worry about this next year, how it has to be a priority for next year's budget to put money into specific projects related to the flooding in your area and other areas of this town. And I can assure you that we've had those conversations, because we know that there's been a lot of other money that's been allocated for other, whether it's been emergency services or infrastructure in town. And the time, I can guarantee you it's going to be a priority of this committee to address some of these issues.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And if I can just add, folks, you can continue utilizing me as sort of your liaison. And in terms of, I know there were some questions in terms of how do we work this into the budget and funds, and I've spoken with Mr. Delaney about it so that he can better, I guess he's a little bit more well-versed with that than I am right now. So he can share how we can begin working on it. We don't necessarily, from what I understand, we're not telling you if something needs to be addressed now, which it seems that it does. We can at least start doing things, and there's ways of figuring that out with the current budget. So I don't want you to walk away from this meeting thinking that no one is doing anything until next year if something absolutely needs to be done now. So we'll leave that. I have spoken to Mr. Delaney, and he'll be talking a little bit more with me about that so we can share it with you and explain. But again, I didn't want you to walk away from this meeting thinking that nobody's doing anything now. And again, you can continue using me as your liaison so that we know there's communication and the committee is kept up to date as to anything that's happening with your properties. So, okay.
Thank you, Committeewoman. Is there anyone else this evening that would like to speak on in regards to consent agenda items? Seeing none. Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to mention is in our consent agenda items this evening is item number 179. That is a shared service, a special citizens area transportation through Monmouth County SCAT program. And this is something that, we've been trying to work on to extend as much services to our seniors, or whether it be veterans or seniors in this community. So I would just like to highlight that this evening and mention to any residents that are here or watching this to check our website to utilize this new services that Holmdel is partnering now with Monmouth County for assistance through with transportation throughout the county. And all that information is on the county website, and they can find any how to sign up, how to register, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a new service that will be provided for our residents. Is there any other comments or anything from our committee on the consent agenda items before we make a motion? No, seeing none, I would like to make do we have a motion to for resolutions 223-171 through 2023-180?
Motion.
Second.
Wendy?
Mr. Bontempo?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Impreviduto?
Yes.
Ms. LaMountain?
Yes.
Mayor Lucarelli?
Yes, with a note.
So 2023-171 to 2023-180 have been successfully passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Now we have resolutions, let's see, what is this? 2023-180, I'm confused here, 181, 2023-188. These are the renewal of liquor licenses. Do we have any comment on this also, Mike? Is this a separate item?
We just list them separately, Mayor, each year because they obviously all fit in tandem, but under state law, every ABC license needs to be renewed. They expire at the end of June, so this action needs to be taken to allow them to be renewed for the upcoming July 1st to June 30th, 2024.
Gotcha.
year.
So that comment period would have been covered under the consent agenda items. So do I have a motion to approve?
Moved.
Second.
Wendy?
Mr. Bontempo?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Impreviduto?
Yes.
Ms. LaMountain?
Yes.
Mayor Lucarelli?
Yes.
So the 2023-181 through 2023-188 have been successfully passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Now we have introduction of ordinances.
Yes, sir. Introduction of 2023-07, which is a bond ordinance to authorize the making of various public improvements and the acquisition of new additional or replacement equipment and machinery, new information technology equipment, new communication and signal systems equipment, and new automotive vehicles, including original apparatus and equipment in, by, and for the Township of Holmdel in the County of Monmouth, State of New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $2,835,000 to pay the cost thereof, and make a down payment to authorize the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, and to provide for the issuance of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds. The motion to is adopt on first reading, published in the Asbury Park Press, and set the public hearing for July 11th, 2023.
Thank you. Jay, do you have any comments on this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just by way of the budget process, as you referenced earlier, we have adopted our operating budget for the current year. And the next step, or as part of that adoption process, we did approve a capital budget, which was the plan for our capital expenditures for the current year as well as the next 5 years. In terms of our current 2023 capital expenditures, this ordinance reflects the authorization and the funding for building improvements, road drainage and traffic safety improvements, police department, vehicles and equipment, fire department, vehicles and equipment, in that case, personal protective equipment, turnout gear and boots, emergency medical services, equipment for the first aid squad, emergency management equipment, public works vehicles and equipment, as well as information technology equipment. I've distributed to the governing body the current list of roads that would be covered under our resurfacing program for the coming year. And again, while this is not the public hearing, that information does reflect the budget discussions that took place earlier this year. I've also distributed a listing of the vehicle and equipment capital requests, and in keeping with the directive of the governing body, this request was capped at $2.7 million of indebtedness for the coming year, as well as the listing of the requests that were made by the various departments and those items within the request that are actually being funded. In general, the funded items were limited to those that are replacements, not for any new or what I'll call expanded fleet or equipment, as well as I said, the proposed resurfacing projects that will be undertaken this year. And there'll be a full explanation and discussion at the public hearing, but that's a general overview of of this ordinance and its intent. I do expect that later this summer and into the fall, we will address those capital items that are specific to our utilities. That's our sanitary sewer utility, as well as the swim club utility. And then we will separately deal with our parks and playground capital improvements for the coming year, which again are primarily funded through our open space fund, as well as some grant programs that we'll be pursuing during the next month.
Thank you. And this list that you gave us for the roads, this is the one that's set now this is the one that was set by Victor for this year's improvements, correct?
That's correct, Mayor. And I should mention that the list is subject to change upon approval of the governing body. This list is our intended repaving roads. The final determination is really limited to what the funding looks like once the bids come back. Depending on the price of asphalt and the contractor bid prices, that'll determine how many of these will get done. It is our expectation that most, if not all of them, will be done. Perhaps we'll be in a position of adding some of next year's priorities to this list.
Thank you. And then would you also mention, I know we received an email from Monmouth County in regards to some of their paving improvements, and we were part of that, but unfortunately we were alternate one, I saw. So I'm guessing the same thing will happen if they run either under budget, or if something changes, we might be extended that
That is
repair.
correct. And it is not uncommon for just the same notice that we received was sent by the county to other impacted communities. There are often times where a municipality will request that one of the county roads be bumped a year because they have utility work to do, or there may be other circumstances that would require that the project be postponed for a year. I hope that's our case, and that the number one alternate, which is Holmdel Road, which is a county road, will be included this year and will not have to wait until next year.
Thank you. Is there any members of the board have any comments or anything about
So,
that?
Jay, this is what the ordinance matches with the paperwork we got tonight,
That's correct.
and then this is the detail of the road program.
That's correct.
So just a quick question. So, would we have the ability to have funding to do the desnagging that is impacting over by Palmer Avenue and Palmer Square that the two gentlemen spoke about this evening in the budget?
That is potentially doable this year. The reality is that any desnagging will most likely require DEP permits, which realistically is I'll be optimistic and say 4 to 6 month process in general. So more than likely, we would not be in a position to undertake any active desnagging or construction activity until next year.
What's your approximate timeline? because we went out to bid for the stormwater management program. It's probably going on close to, Bill, a year and a half now that they've had this. And my expectations was, when Sharon was here, that was about a year scope of work, Jay, to kind of get that turned around. Any idea when we're going to get that back?
I can tell you that I believe the transition meeting that I participated in with Bill, as well as the representatives from Colliers, was that the expectation was the project, the plan, the mapping and the plan, that is primarily a mapping project, was 90% complete in early February, and we were looking 6 to 8 weeks for that to be delivered. Subsequent to that, Colliers informed me that they had encountered some issues. We've actually had significant discussions with them, and as of 2 weeks ago, they were expecting that it was a 6-week project delivery timeframe.
Issues with the project or with their back end work?
A little bit of both. The project, the scope of the project, while it was outlined in the bid proposal, or in this case they were requests for proposals, there were a number of complicating factors, including the number of structures related to the stormwater system that they've uncovered as part of their mapping, and that translated into a number of, I guess, a higher than expected number of return visits that were required by their staff.
Got it. Yeah. My only concern is that these gentlemen have been going through, and all the residents have been going through this for a while. The town actually has a precedent of expeditiously helping out residents that are having flooding issues. So we've had some history in the past, and TNM has done a lot of work on that in the town in the past. So I think these guys need to be, in my opinion, kind of brought up to be included in the capital program for 23. I mean, it's getting to the point where the pictures I'm seeing, it's becoming safety hazards.
Yeah, I would agree, and just by way of background, you may recall that during our budget preparation, we did actually include specifically, although it may be from some perspective simply cosmetic, our capital plan has identified drainage and stormwater improvements specifically, and while we don't have hard numbers to base them on, we have identified over the next 6 years some $10 million of, and it's really, in all fairness, just a ballpark number at this point, including our road and drainage improvements. I will also tell you that, just if I may, in light of some of the comments that have been made, the information that's been brought to my attention in my recent meeting with committee person LaMountain, there are several aspects of this that we are looking at. And I will say that some of it, there's been reference to the Rutgers study. There's actually been 2 Rutgers studies in the last 2.5 years. The results of the one were really identifying very specific, some of our largest land uses in the community, some very specific drainage improvements related to impervious structures that could be undertaken. The first study actually was a broader, and I believe it was limited to the Wacacac Creek area or stream. And the end result of that, or the executive summary of that study, was that the recommendation to undertake a more specific study and more in-depth. And that is really the subject of the Colliers plan that is currently underway. I think within a matter of weeks of the initial Rutgers report being issued, the Township Committee requested proposals and awarded a contract to Colliers for the mapping, hydraulic study, and I believe the third component was related to our stormwater management general permit. But one of the items that has definitely been cited tonight by the 2 gentlemen that spoke is that some of the areas of concern are outside actually the municipal boundary of Holmdel. And as a result of that, we've scheduled a meeting with the county. It's a regional session on floodplain management and resiliency issues, because the other coastal communities, or the other communities in this Bayshore area along the coast, are encountering the same issues. And I think there's a recognition that overall it needs to be addressed on a more regional basis. While there are some individual improvements that we will make here in Holmdel, it is essentially the water that collects in all of our cases, discharge is outside of our community.
Thanks, Jay.
Jay, that meeting, that's the latter part of July, is that correct?
Yeah, I believe it's the 27th is the date. That's the information I forwarded to you earlier.
Okay, yeah, just so you folks have an idea, this is all, we are moving forward, we are trying to put everything in motion so that we know what we can do now, what we can do in the future. So working with Hazlitt and other communities, this is all in the works. They're meeting in July to talk about this. So figure things out, or begin figure things out.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. And like I said, quite frankly, this is going to be the next major priority for our community. We've spent a lot of money over the years, and we have a new firehouse. We did a big major repairs on our EMS building, the locker room that I'm happy to see that it's a closeout order. And a lot of other things that our road improvements. I mean, we've done a lot of good things in this community, and I really do believe that the next major priority and focus for this committee is going to be stormwater management and, putting together specific projects to help the issues that we have in town. We're not going to order more reports and get more studies. I don't think that's necessary anymore. I think it's time for some action, and that will be coming. With that said, can I have a motion to adopt ordinance 2023-07?
Move.
Second.
And just to clarify, this is introduction on first reading, public hearing.
Did
I just heard a reference to adoption. I just want to clarify.
So it's an
that,
adoption of the capital and providing.
I guess an introduction.
Introduction of ordinance 2023-07.
Exactly.
Thank you,
So
Michael.
No problem. So public hearing will be in July 11th.
Mr. Bontempo?
Yep.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Impreviduto?
Yes.
Ms. LaMountain?
Yes.
Mayor Lucarelli?
Yes.
Okay, 2023-07 will be set for a public hearing for July 11th, 2023. The next introduction is ordinance 2023-08, which is a capital ordinance providing for improvements to Pleasant Valley and Bethany roads and appropriating $665,000 from general capital fund. The motion to is adopt on first reading, published in the Asbury Park Press, and set the public hearing for July 11th, 2023.
Thank you, Wendy. Jay or Bill, do you have any comments on this?
Just an introductory statement, Mayor. This ordinance, like the one that has just been introduced, authorizes road improvements. The difference is that this does not involve any new indebtedness. This is being fully funded by a combination of state grant as well as what is referenced as a general capital fund, and I'll let Bill explain that at this time.
This ordinance, we're taking all the funds from the general capital fund balance. The fund balance is generated, if you remember the last couple of years, we've had bond sales and premiums on the bond sales and note sales. That money by statute is required to go into our fund balance, and we're allowed to use it to appropriate for an ordinance. In this case, we're doing it so we won't be going out for any debt for Pleasant Valley Road.
Thank you, and that's good to hear. Is there any? Is this a?
Similarly, Mayor, an introduction.
Okay. Is there any other comments from the board?
Bill, where do we borrow the money from?
There were the two bond sales. If you remember the bond sale we had in 2021, we got a bond sale premium of $798,000. And that's, by law, has to go into the fund balance. So basically, we're using that to fund this ordinance.
Thanks, Bill.
Anyone else? No. Okay. Do I have a motion to introduce 2023-08?
Moved.
Second.
Wendy?
Mr. Bontempo?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Impreviduto?
Yes.
Ms. LaMountain?
Yes.
Mayor Lucarelli?
Yes.
2023-08 will be set for public hearing on July 11th, 2023.
Thank you, Wendy. Administrator, do you have any other things to discuss this evening?
The next item, Mayor, is actually the public hearing on our open space grant application. So if you want to make that announcement, then I'll provide some introductory statement. Item number 9.
Okay, got it. My apologies. So, public hearing on open space grant application, the Lower Harding House, Bayonet Farm building improvements, the roof and project block 11, lot 7701.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. As indicated, the Monmouth County Board of Recreation Commissioners has what they've identified. In the past, it was known as their Open Space Grant Program. They have modified it slightly, and it is technically now a park improvement. There's a park component, park improvement component to the county's open space funding mechanism. That application is due on July 13th. And part of that process requires that we conduct a public hearing. We have identified, as part of our capital budgeting and operating budget procedure, requested department heads to provide us with suggestions for capital improvements. Specifically, 2 items that were submitted this year were related to the Harding House, specifically some improvements that are needed, starting with the roof, starting at the top in order to preserve the structure. Additionally, although it was not suggested as a project for the current year, Recreation had suggested that improvements to the Bayonet Farm restroom facilities be included for next year. In looking at this, the revised grant program from the county, because both of these are at Bayonet Farm, we consolidated them and have identified approximately $330,000 in needed improvements, including those 2 that I just referenced. The county grant program provides for a 50% match and a maximum county funding of, or a total funding of $500,000. So what we are requesting or suggesting is an application for these improvements at Bayonet Farm for a total of $330,000, and we are requesting a 50% match as part of the county's application or share in this. Just by way of background, we currently have outstanding with the Monmouth County Parks program a $114,000 grant that was awarded for the year 2021 related to our bikeway path. That program and that project is currently under in design. It actually is about ready for submission of permits that would be required of DEP. Last year, the township submitted a second, what was identified as Phase 2 of the bikeway path, and we've identified a more suitable grant application program from the state that does not require a match for any bike path improvements that would be undertaken moving forward. So it is my recommendation that we proceed with this application for improvements to both the Harding House at the Bayonet Farms as well as the existing restrooms at that facility. And at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions from the members of the committee, but at some point we will open it up to the public to meet the requirements of the county's application process. And if all goes well and there's an agreement to move forward, we will prepare the application and a formal resolution authorizing that application for our meeting on July 11th.
Thank you. And then that meeting would be we would have to do it on that meeting, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. So just so I'm clear, this is for restrooms and in the gray barn or in the other barn there where they have weddings.
I believe it is the gray barn.
The gray barn, and it's just the roof on the Harding home.
The roof
Or is
and
there other
some
improvements?
related. I'll call them improvements, but it is not a complete rehab.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Any other board members have questions on this grant program?
So Jay, the Phase 2 on the bike path, was the path of the bikes changed? Because I know that the initial concept got some pushback, and there's a current one that you're moving with. Is that the amended one?
Yes, I refer to it as, I don't have them in front of me, but I believe without knowing the specific roadways involved, the initial plan had a yellow mark going through, and I am aware that there was a revised plan that actually represents our current Phase 2 plan that was submitted to the county last year but was not funded.
Yeah, the challenge, I think it was, I'm not sure, I don't know the plan, was, the original plan had to go down Middletown Road, and there wasn't enough area to put the bike path in with the 2 car lanes, one in, one out. So they were going to devise a path to go through the back of the building to get through to Bayonet Farms and ultimately out to the street and then out to Cross Farms Park.
Yeah, if I may, there are a number of what I would call challenges related to the bike path, whether we're talking Phase 1 or Phase 2. The Phase 1 plan essentially had the path connecting, I'll use general terms, the high school to basically the entrance to the Bell Works property. The second phase was a continuation from that point near, or with the intent to direct it towards Cross Farm, but I don't believe it made it quite as far. There are a number of challenges related to both crossing of Crawford's Corner Road, which is the first part of the first phase. There are substantial environmental challenges as the proposed bike path proceeds through F&F Farms until Roberts Road, and then a whole different slew of challenges crossing the private property of Bell Works, trying to connect it. So that's one of the reasons why until the DEP weighs in on the environmental challenges, it was felt we would sort of go slow with any additional funding requests through Monmouth County when we have other priorities to our parks that could potentially be funded more readily through the county program. And I'll take this point to mention that we have identified New Jersey DOT has a separate grant program for bikeways that we will more than likely submit something as part of that application process this year.
Good, thanks.
And just to add to that, we met the other day with Ben and Kim in regards to the bike path, and to say that there are considerable challenges on that Phase 2 plan. So you're correct, Greg. They changed it from going up the road. Now the proposed Phase 2 is connecting that existing walk path into converting that kind of into a bike path. But there's different elevations, and there's bridges have to be built, and then obviously with all the water, the different streams and everything brings up to play a lot of the DEP issues. So I think what we were trying to do now is really focus on getting Phase 1 completed, and then continuing, having these conversations with the engineers on, the best. I keep wanting to use the analogy that the best path forward, but it's a little quirky, but that's all right. But I do believe that the bike path is something that's good for the community, and I do think that we need to stay focused on it. But unfortunately, there's just a lot of challenges. We're forcing a path through areas that there's whether it's resistance from residents or there's just environmental issues. So it's gonna it's something that we're working on, but there's there's a lot of challenges. But Phase 1 is moving. And I'm happy to say that that's going on. Brian, I know you had something else.
Yeah, just kind of a quick follow-up to the challenges and stuff. Jay, is there a time frame on when we have to use that grant or lose it from the county?
There is. Typically, it's a 2-year process. As you well know, one of the advantages of partnering with Monmouth County is while they have certain restrictions as far as the use and the timeline for the expenditure of the funds, there is some recognition of some of the challenges in obtaining DEP permits. I think we have we have a good working relationship with the county, and I'm quite confident that they would entertain an extension if needed.
Anyone else from the committee? So do we open this up for public comments now? Okay, so I'd like to open this up for the public comments regarding the proposed grant application that was discussed. Yes, please.
enough to speak in here. Thank you. Janet Jackal, 31 Stony Brook Road. I was very interested in this item, and in fact, I spoke with Barbara Kovaleski today about it. I'm president of Friends of Holmdel Open Space, and I've committed us to providing a letter of support that would help in getting this grant, and anything else that we can do that would help. And that's it.
Thank you, Janet. Yes, Barbara. It's Karen. I'm sorry, Karen.
Karen Strickland, 26 Hayward Hills Drive. I'm speaking tonight as a representative of the Citizens for Informed Land Use Board of Directors, and we want to applaud you for your efforts on going for this grant money to take care of the Harding House. As you know, the Harding House is a center point of CLU's annual Earth Day celebration. For 26 years, we have been doing tours of the Harding House, as some of you have went gone on the tours and seen the beautiful feathered painting and the ornate things that are there in the house. Anyway, but one year we couldn't do it. 2 years ago we couldn't do the tour because the house was falling apart. And then thank you to your efforts now, improvements have already been made, and this should really put us on a good path to making even more improvements so that eventually we can actually use this place make it a living house, a living place. So our board talks about what we could do with it, and we could make it an adjunct to the community center building so that people could cook in that kitchen. That kitchen is wonderful, and it's a great place so that Tony can make her have her cooking classes in there, and then they can all go into the dining room and they could eat the food. Or the ballroom there can be concerts in the ballrooms. Families can rent that space for little parties, or there can be, last year I did a tour and I mentioned this idea that we should be using this place, and a woman who plays the violin came up to me and said, you know, I play professional violin. I could do in the ballroom a little concert for your senior citizens in this house. So there are so many possibilities, and you guys are sending us on our way, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen. Yes.
Jenny Blumenthal, 41 Stony Brook Road. Over the past few years, the town has gotten a lot of blue ribbons, so to speak, from the community because we kept our parks open. And we brought in a lot of folks who might not have been familiar with Holmdel because they could go to the parks. And then more recently, we have founded a dog park, which has brought in many, many people. And the story seems to be that there's probably more non-Holmdelians going to the dog park than not. But that brings a whole lot of traffic to our parks. And then for the last 2 springs, MCF, Monmouth Conservation Foundation, has used our facilities for their spring fundraiser, which has brought in many dollars to them and even more places for us. And why do they come? Because everything is lovely. The one thing that's not lovely right this minute is the exterior and interior of the Harding House. You wouldn't go to a party if you were wearing your grubbiest clothes and try and make friends with people. I think what we need now is to change the clothes and maybe even the bone structure, otherwise known as fixing the plumbing and electricity and other boring things like that, for the Harding House to be the shining star of all the rest of the good things in town. So Karen has been forecasting all kinds of things to do, but the most important thing is to fix the roof. Some of the windows are rotten, and then there's lead paint and so forth. But if you talk to Gail Hunton at the county parks, she's an expert on getting rid of lead paint and things like that. And she will be able to help you completely. You don't have to tear the whole thing down just over a little bit of paint that got put there before we were born. So proceed with making a grant application to start the wheel blowing on making this the princess castle of Holmdel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to comment on this grant application? Seeing none, I'd close the comment portion, and so our job now is to we're going to make a motion on advancing this, correct?
Yeah, no, I'm not even sure if there's general consensus to move forward. We will prepare the application, and it will be listed on the agenda for authorization at our next meeting.
Thank you, Jay. Okay, now I'm back to you, Administrator update.
Thank you, Mayor. And if you haven't noticed, since the budget's been adopted, we've been spending time on moving the capital plan forward, as well as July is a heavy grant month. We have 3 grants coming up. I made some brief mention of them at the last meeting, but we are proceeding with the development of submission of grant applications under the New Jersey DOT, Department of Transportation, Municipal Aid Program, as well as the bike path that I mentioned earlier. Specifically, we've identified some roadways for submission of applications for DOT. Specifically, the Centerville, technically they're 2 separate sections, but it's one grant application. Centerville Road from Tacaloosa to Route 35, and then the opposite side of that same Route 35 intersection is Union Avenue. So we're proposing the inclusion of Union Avenue from Route 35 to the border with Hazlet. And we've identified approximately $750,000 in estimated cost, and with the governing body's approval, we will submit that application and again have the formal authorization included as part of the meeting agenda for the July 11th session. We are also looking at while DOT allows us to submit 2 applications as priority 1, priority 2, it's highly unlikely that we would receive funding for both, but we are also looking at additional roads, specifically Crawford Corner Road as a secondary priority for submission. In theory, if we don't receive funding for our second priority this year, more than likely that would be our first priority in the next grant cycle. The DOT program is an annual grant program, and that is our plan at present for submission later in, well, I guess I can't say later this month, in July. And also related to our next grant program is the County Community Development Block Grant Program. And again, we have identified a project which are the ADA handicap accessibility improvements at the community center. We anticipate that this grant application does require a public hearing, and we anticipate having that public hearing at our July 11th meeting. This grant is not due until the end of the month, but we only have one scheduled meeting in July. So July 11th will be a busy night for our grants applications as well as the hearings. If I didn't mention it, the county program for the CDBG has a $200,000 grant maximum. We are still working on the cost estimates, but we expect that we will come pretty close to that maximum for the community center improvements, between the ADA improvements into the building as well as the renovation of the restrooms. We expect that number will be pretty close to the maximum grant available through that program. And that's all I have at this time, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Jay. Bill, do you have any other additional things this evening?
Just have one thing. We did pass a resolution to extend the grace period for the taxes. The taxes will be due 25 days after the mailing, so we'll be giving further notice whether or not the deadline will be August 1st or it will be extended. We will not know that until the tax bills are actually mailed out. That's for both taxes and pilot payments. Yeah, we are waiting for the certification. I believe it's only three towns thus far in Monmouth County that have their tax rate certified and the tax bills issued. So we're on the queue with everybody else right now.
Okay, thank you very much. Counselor, any updates this evening?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor and members of the committee. Just one update. I know at the last meeting we had a discussion regarding the New Jersey Natural Gas Regulator Station that is in the process of being installed on Holmdel Road. Just to provide a little more clarity, because I know some questions have ensued since then. The township's been involved in the litigation challenging in which New Jersey Natural Gas went to the BPU trying to get the approval to override Holmdel Zoning Board and install the regulator station. And I can tell you that the committee's been looking at this, different members over the committee over many years, but the consistent action of the governing body has been to litigate and to fight the matter through the Office of Administrative Law up to the Board of Public Utilities, which ruled against the township, and now into the Superior Court's Appellate Division, where special counsel is currently preparing a brief to seek a court ruling that would override the BPU and reverse them. Unfortunately, the special counsel did apply to the Appellate Division for relief to seek a stay, which would have prevented the installation of the regulator station pending that appeal. But to be clear to the public, the court denied that application. Because that was denied, New Jersey Natural Gas does have the right to go ahead and install the regulator station as of right. Since they're a regulated public utility, it was determined that they did not need to pull any permits, so they were at their disposal to proceed with the installation. But as was noted in a release that was issued by the township last week, and quoting the mayor, the township really has taken every practical step to try and fight this. It's still being litigated, and the township's position is that if Holmdel wins in the appellate court, New Jersey Natural Gas should be required to remove the regulator station, and that they've gone ahead and installed this at their own peril. So I just want to reiterate that, you know, everything that the governing body has done has been in support of opposing this application and this installation, but obviously the court has ruled against that application for a stay. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that, those clarifications and update on that. Committeeman Bontempo, do you have any updates this evening?
Sure. So first, the Holmdel Library. We had more than 5,500 people visit the library during the month of June. Over 700 in-person reference questions were answered, 166 phone reference questions were answered, and 146 rentals of our private study rooms. Our private study rooms are extremely popular between students and professionals that enjoy the quietness of the rooms. The library is in the process of training 2 branch staff members to be able to serve at the Holmdel circulation desk to bolster support staff we have there, and they provide more help to our residents. Additionally, one of their employees, Mary Feeney, has been accepted to the graduate school to earn her library Masters of Library Science. In the month of June, the library had a Juneteenth display featuring books by Black authors, about books about the Black experience in America. June was also the National Great Outdoors Month, so the library had a display of travel books and books on outdoor adventuring. Improvements to the library, a partnership with the township, include Glenn DeLaken's company, CSAV, put in another smart screen technology. So evidently, the younger children that go back in the children's area love the display we put in, that it's right at the entrance when you segue from the meeting room area back to the children's area. So they enjoyed it so much that they couldn't reach it because they're like 4 and 5-year-olds, so they were pulling chairs out and sitting on chairs to draw on the screen, because you could draw and then you could save your drawings and print. So they moved the screen down, and the library requested another one, so we put a larger screen, additional screen, inside the children's activity room in the back of the library for more use, and they're very excited about that. The new display cases should be arriving soon, Jay, I'm guessing, right? It should be soon.
Yeah, we haven't received confirmation on a delivery date, but the order was confirmed.
Yeah, so we're excited that we're going to be able to start showcasing different topics, the history of Holmdel, arts that people do in the display cases. They're gonna our architect did a great job, kind of threading them through the library so they kind of blend in with the flow and process. And Anthony's done an amazing job since the original inception. We started the library to amending that, and then there's a new American flagpole for the classroom, and one also for the meeting room that were just added to the library. Regarding the Veterans Committee, scratched the library because we kind of combined them. We had our author talk a week ago Thursday with Nellie LaHoot at the Holmdel Library. It was a great success. The Veterans Committee partnered with the Holmdel Library and Holmdel Library Foundation to host a special event with the author Nellie LaHoot about her book, The Bin Laden Papers. We had probably close to about 132 residents in attendance at the meeting. There were a ton of questions at the end, people that were here, so I had to kind of cut it off because they wanted to get the author to be able to sign everybody's books before she had to leave. And I really want a special thanks to Jay and Tara and Trish, our librarian, Bob Ward, the Holmdel Librarian Foundation for paying for this. Somerset Development were able to use the Bell Theater downstairs, which was a perfect segue because she was able to present her documents. And of course, Ralph Zucker, who actually stopped in, say hello, meet the author, and get a picture with her. And it was interesting we were debating between going to the library and then downstairs, but the amount of people we had, it was more comfortable, I think, downstairs. It was everybody could see. There was a comfortable chair. It was kind of, the way the kind of theater style seating. Because one of the papers she puts up in her presentation was actually all documents she did were correspondence. There were about 50,000 papers that were either written by bin Laden or sent to bin Laden that she spent years after the CIA cleared them for her to kind of start interpreting them. And one that she put up on the screen was him writing, it's in the book, about he sent 2 operatives to the United States a year before 9/11. And their job was to learn the culture, learn the language, blend in, so when he decided to give the order, they could execute. And he writes in the one letter how he was so disappointed that one of the operatives he sent was a complete failure. He couldn't learn the English language. He couldn't understand anything. He wasn't reporting back regularly. But then he abruptly stopped writing the letter. And she said, I'll explain later why he stopped. So she went on to his talk and then went back and said, somebody raised a question, why did he stop? And she said, he was afraid if he sent out some concern that the operation wouldn't get pulled off, that his followers would start falling back and maybe not believing in what he had done. So she put that letter up. And actually, some of the book signs, people actually asked if she would sign in Arabic because she writes and speaks in 4 languages. So it was an interesting event. Everybody who attended was able to get a book and meet Dr. LaHoot and got it signed. And we're actually in the process of looking for, future events over there because the feedback from those attending was extremely positive, and some people that just couldn't fit in their schedule, looking forward to be able to come out again in the future. So it was a great team effort. A lot of people involved, as I mentioned, to help get this thing pulled off, and it's one I think that we can hopefully replicate going forward and do more community type events like that for the Holmdel community. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Committeewoman LaMountain?
From the Community Development Department, in terms of the business registration, the department is just about completed the process for having Holmdel's businesses registered with certificates, which is now required by new state law. And just some advice. This is the season where we see a lot of fires, particularly from grills with resulting injuries. So we ask just please use caution when using your grill. For the month of July seems to be the height of those injuries. As well, in terms of fireworks and similar devices, over 4,000 firework-related injuries occur over the 4th of July holiday in our country. And nearly 19,500 fires are accidentally started each year due to fireworks. So please, if you're engaging in grilling or fireworks, please be very careful. The Holmdel monthly newsletter will be coming out the end of this week, so if you're looking for any more information about grilling safety and firework safety, you'll be able to find some in that newsletter as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Committeeman Foster.
Thought you were going to keep going down the line. Good evening, everybody. Couple of updates. Holmdel Police Department. Congratulations to Patrolman James Herlihy and Darrell Jackson, who on June 22nd received the Recognition of Excellent Service Award from the Mothers Against Drunk Driving at their annual New Jersey Law Enforcement event. The police department also conducted an active threat training at Bayshore Hospital. Basically, this is us conducting active threat training for hospital employees, which we then go on to train them how to respond during a threat. We then conducted some realistic drills, which they were able to put their training to the test. The first aid squad just had their annual fundraiser for 2023. The mailers were recently sent out. If you can give, please do. I'm sure you're all aware we're having those renovations the mayor mentioned before, so the squad is very excited about that. They're doing extremely well over there. Our volunteers, all volunteers, appreciate the generous donations from the residents and businesses of Holmdel in support of the squad, and your donations basically allow us to continue to purchase supplies we need for our day-to-day operations, as well as to purchase the best equipment available for use during our emergency responses. Additionally, the donations we receive allow our volunteers to also attend trainings needed to ensure we provide the best pre-hospital care possible to our patients. The fire department, the new tower ladder truck wet down / dedication, we'll be hosting that on Saturday, August 26th from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. at the Crawford's Corner Fire Station. There will be live music and food. The public is welcome and encouraged to attend. Those events are always very well attended, lively, a lot of fun, live music. Very, very nice to see in there. I'm sure they're very proud to show off their new truck. In addition, on July 17th, the fire department will be conducting a live burn training as required by the statute at the Aberdeen Fire Training Grounds. And the next scheduled training after that will be a fire pump training. Just an incident to mention, on the 21st of June, the fire department responded to the Garden State Parkway for a fully involved car fire at milepost 117.3 on the northbound side. The fire, fortunately, was extinguished without incident. And then just two other brief updates. The fire department received another new membership application in the past 2 weeks, and also another application for the cadets. So we've seen a lot of people coming on board, in the past several months, which is awesome. Kudos to the chief and their squad and team for getting it out there. And that's it for me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Committeeman. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. From the Department of Recreation, as of yesterday, June 26th, the swim club is now open on a daily basis. The weather's been a little bit of a challenge, but it's a great start to the season nonetheless with registrations. And the first home swim meet for the Holmdel Hurricanes swim team is tomorrow night versus the Hazlitt Swim Club. The summer recreation program began yesterday at Cross Farm Park. There is still space in weeks 2 through 6 if you'd like to register your child. The Recreation Department will be hosting its annual Senior Summer Barbecue on Tuesday, July 6th at 12 p.m., from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. at the Senior Community Center. It's open to all residents ages 62 and up. It's a free event, but the department asks that residents RSVP by calling the Recreation Office at extension 1225 by Monday, July 3rd. From the Board of Education, the Holmdel Public Schools successfully closed out the 2022-23 school year last week. William R. Satz Middle School held a graduation ceremony on Monday, June 19th, awarding certificates of completion to 272 students. We wish all the rising ninth graders congratulations and all the best as they move on to begin their high school careers, whether at Holmdel High School or other secondary academic institutions. On June 20th, Holmdel High School held its historic 50th commencement ceremony for the graduating class of 2023. Congratulations to those 223 graduates on achieving this important milestone. 96% of the graduating class will be continuing their academic careers at institutions of higher education. The complete list of colleges and universities can be found on the school district's homepage. Later that evening, the graduates enjoyed a safe and fun celebration at the project graduation event held at Sportica in Manalapan. The school district is tremendously grateful for the tireless efforts of the project graduation organizing committee, all the parent volunteers who came out that night to support the event, and the generous donors who helped fund it, all to help our graduates celebrate safely. Summertime in the school district will continue to be bustling with activity as the district will hold its extended school year program for students with specialized learning needs, as well as the summer STEP program and theater arts performing camp. The Buildings and Grounds Department, as always, will be hard at work, not only in carrying out the annual deep cleaning and maintenance of the school's facility, but also engage in a number of renovation and light construction projects. On a personal note, I just want to wish SAT's Principal Bill Loughran well in his retirement. He was my first teacher when I came over to Holmdel. And as I walked with him through the high school, he remembered the room and the time, which speaks to his memory. He's always had one like a steel trap. So I do want to wish Mr. Loughran well. You know, he gave 35 years to our community and to our students for many generations. So with Bill and Sean Devaney is also retiring. He is the varsity basketball coach, and he was my basketball coach when I was here. So I don't know if this means I'm getting older, they are. But either way, it's good to wish them well and hope they enjoy the fruits of their retirement. And then a few last notes from the Heritage Committee. They have discussed and finalized a questionnaire for surveying the residents at their last meeting on June 15th. The survey will serve as an assessment tool to understand the needs and interests of Holmdel residents for future Heritage Committee planning and goals. The Heritage Committee would like to congratulate the Bayshore Greek Festival in Holmdel for another successful event held earlier this month from June 8th to the 11th. In the spirit of celebrating the heritage of Holmdel residents, traditional Greek cuisine was served. There were artisan vendors selling Greek handicrafts, and there was live Greek music, and costumed Greek folk dancers were featured throughout the festival. The committee looks forward to more events like this in the future. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. As a lot of people, we experienced some severe weather in Monmouth County over the past few weeks, and JCP&L has asked local mayors to remind our residents to report all power outages, even if you think someone may already have done so. Residents can report a power outage online, either at JCP&L website by texting the word out to the number 544-478, which is the word lights, or by calling the JCP&L hotline. Residents can also view current outages and updates on JCP&L's social media. It's possible that severe weather will continue over the next few summer months. Check out this month's Holmdel newsletter for a checklist of essential supplies for severe weather. As most of you are aware, 2 weeks ago we had several days of extremely poor air quality due to the large wildfires in Canada. During incidences like this, sensitive populations, including the elderly and young, and those with lung diseases should exercise extreme caution when they're outside. As we did a few weeks ago, Holmdel Township will continue to keep residents informed of future poor quality days at the direction of our Office of Emergency Management throughout Code Red and Newsflash notification systems, and our website and our social media. And I'd also like to reiterate the Deputy Mayor said about the, I'd like to wish on behalf of the entire Township Committee, offer my congratulations to the classes of 2023 of Holmdel High School, St. John Vianney, and other area high schools. Good luck to the next step of your journey, whether you be continuing in school or going off to work. Please have fun and a productive summer. I was invited to attend the ceremony at the high school, and I did, and it was a really beautiful ceremony, and I did make it a point to talk to Bill Loughran and see him and wish him congratulations. So I was his first year teaching. I was a junior in high school. He was my English teacher. And so we reminisced a little bit, and then he had my kids and everything. So it was pretty cool, and I obviously wish him well. And also Mr. Devaney, he was a gym teacher, like his first or second year, when I think I was a sophomore in high school. That was his first year as a phys ed teacher, and these guys are retiring now. It's crazy. But wish them well. And with that, I will close our meeting and open it up for public comments. Wendy?
In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, this is a public comment period for public comment on any governmental issue of public concern. In accordance with Resolution 2022-17, public commenters are asked to raise their hand and wait to be recognized by the mayor before coming forward and making public comments. Commenters are asked to state their full name and address before commenting. Public commenters are limited to one comment not to exceed 3 minutes. Comments should be directed to the mayor and township committee. If appropriate, the mayor may direct and recognize a staff, employee, or professional to respond to comments either at this meeting or in writing after this meeting.
Thank you, Wendy. At this time, I'd like to open up for public comments. Please raise your hand, be recognized. This gentleman in the back of the room was first. Sorry. It's the gentleman with the blue shirt. You're good.
Joe Crowley, 15 Ely Road. Thank you. My understanding is that the committee at the last meeting took the first steps towards possible acquisition of properties related to the Great Horn antenna. I'd like to thank the committee for their efforts in that area. Would like to add my thoughts on it. Worked for 30 years at Bell Labs. My last few were at that Crawford Hill installation at the bottom of the hill leading up to the Great Horn antenna. And I took the opportunity on a couple of occasions to go up there and just soak it in. To the engineering accomplishments, the significance of the scientific discovery, and beyond that, as a Catholic, that's the echoes of creation. So my thought and my feeling is that, you know, we heard the whisper of God here in our little town, and I think there's tremendous reasons to do everything we can to keep that as it is. So thank you for your efforts, and I encourage you to keep doing whatever's necessary.
Thank you, Joe. Yes, sir.
My name is Thomas Wood. I live at 20 Heather Hill Way in Holmdel. I last spoke to the committee in February about the horn antenna. And at that time I said that, like it or not, you all had become custodians of the horn antenna at Crawford Hill. So 2 weeks ago at your last meeting, you took some important steps to start the condemnation process and amending the redevelopment study ordinance. And personally, I want to thank each and every one of you very much for moving forward in that direction. It's maybe the most important thing that you'll do on this committee. But while this process moves forward, I am concerned about some risks to the horn, which the horn, you have correctly identified, is an incredibly important cultural asset. I'm not talking about damage to the horn from weather or the elements. The horn has stood for the last 60 years or so, and from what I can tell and what I can see, it seems to be in pretty good shape. I am talking about two risks that I think you should take immediate action to mitigate. The first is vandalism. The profile of the horn has been raised considerably due to the efforts to protect it. Thousands of people who never heard of the horn now know that it sits alone at the top of Crawford Hill. There's little security, lighting, warning signage, video monitoring, alarms, or police visits to the site. I would request that you ask the property owner and the Holmdel Police to develop and implement a plan to protect the horn against vandalism. But the second risk, to me at least, is more concerning. We're aware of multiple cases where a developer found an asset interfering with his plans and merely hired a bulldozer and knocked it down without any notice whatsoever. I know this happened, for example, at the Penelope Stout House at 78 Crawford's Corner Road in the 2000s, and fairly recently to a historic barn on the west property. Other cases exist. I would like to ask the mayor to ask the attorney to describe what the township could do right now to protect the horn from being intentionally destroyed by the developer.
Is that all your comments this evening?
That's all my comments.
Okay, no problem. So, obviously, as you know, it's still privately owned, and I think that you make a great point, and it's obviously always been a concern of ours. And if the council does have any other comments on that, you know.
Thank you, Mayor. We're obviously limited to what we could say because we're currently in active litigation with the developer with respect to the ownership of the horn antenna issue that's previously been discussed, and the threat of condemnation is further litigation. So I want to be a little circumspect about what we share, but you know, while respecting that this is on private property and is currently privately owned, the township certainly would want to work with the private owner to ensure the security of the horn antenna, and I think your comment is well taken in that regard. And with respect to any legal options to preserve the horn antenna, I could just say that the township is well aware of the considerations that you're espousing, and we've had numerous discussions in executive session to have the township exercise all of its legal options to ensure preservation of the horn antenna.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Ralph Blumenthal, 41 Stony Brook Road. I want to ask you about where Stony Brook Road stands on your paving project. And because I wasn't even sure that I could get here tonight. Stony Brook is 42 years old, is falling apart. For the last couple of years, the various engineers and Victor have all said, we're not going to do it because of the Mount Drive force main, and which they were rerouting it out of the valley and along Mount Ravine and onto Stony Brook. Yesterday, today, I don't know if it's part of that contract of replacing this force main, but they were grinding and not yet paving, and it's probably tomorrow if it doesn't rain, those pieces of Stony Brook, but only those pieces of Mount Ravine and Stony Brook where the force main was put in. So now that that's going to get completed, presumably in the next couple of days, we think Stony Brook ought to be back on the list for having the rest of Stony Brook paved. So I guess, Greg, you indicated it's not on the list, but it should be somewhere on the list.
For the record, Brook Lane is on the list, so if that helps you. No, I'm only teasing.
Yeah.
So no,
yeah.
but Ralph, your point taken.
And, you know, we're at the high end number, and
Yeah.
for a while today, the street was closed. We couldn't get out.
Well,
So,
why couldn't you get out? Because of the force main construction?
No, the force main is in the ground because of the paving work. They were grinding the streets.
They
on
were
both
grinding.
sides,
I
and
gotcha.
they had
Okay.
the street closed off, so we had no way of getting out. I presume.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
point
it-
taken.
it's-
We'll definitely look at
Yeah,
that.
I mean,
and
I understand that that was a complex, messy, expensive project with the force main, and you had to do first things first, and that makes
well, that
sense.
may be an exception to this, because if there was work being there, that may be pending repaving on
whatever.
completion
So
of
it
that
just-
project. So we'll look at that.
Take a look at where it is on the list, and now that the other job is done.
Like I said, it
conceivably-
may actually be superseding the list, so we'll look into that.
Good. Thank you.
Hey, Mayor, I just wanted to
You're welcome.
piggyback on you and Rocco's comments about Mr. Lochran. I only had the 2 years to deal with him, Bill, over there. I guess my son Turner, I don't know if he had anything to do with him leaving, or maybe Liam coming into school this coming year. He wouldn't confirm or deny it, but Bill was outstanding to deal with, a great guy. Talk about 35 years and just what you guys added, that he taught you guys is pretty awesome, a rock in this community. And Coach Devaney had some interactions with him as well, also a class act, and sad to see them go.
Just to add to that,
Thank you.
I was board president when Bill first came, and he was our son's track and cross-country coach. A great guy, Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
he
we
was
all
wet
get
behind
all
ears. He was right out of college, and
yeah.
he was. We were, yeah. But he came a long way. He's a great guy. He really is. And honestly, my children, my two younger children who are just came out of SATS, they're in high school. They were disappointed to see that he was leaving. And I relayed that to him, and that meant a lot. He said, and I was serious. I said, no, they were disappointed to see him leave. They liked him a lot at SATS. Is there any yes, Mr. Emma?
Ron Emma, 32 Ladwood Drive. Earlier this year, the Township Committee had made a pledge that a feasibility study would be on the agenda this year for a paid fire department. Just wondering, can you give us an update on that? And was there any money in the budget cycle for that study? And secondly, the list of roads, is that on the website? I assume it is. I think that's it. Yeah, thanks.
I don't think that's on the website yet because that's not confirmed yet. That's the that's not the official, we'll say, list, Ron. I did pledge to do a study. I don't know if that was going to be a paid study, so there is no money in here. That was going to be internally. Okay. Unfortunately, our training officer, who I was communicating with, was out on personal leave for a few months. I don't even know if he's back on full duty yet. I think Officer DRC is on part-time. So he's just coming back to work now. I met with him. It was probably at that meeting, was it 3 weeks ago? We've been in touch. He actually has met with the, I don't know what the organization's name, but the gentleman that did the assessment for the rating. Yeah. So we're scheduling a meeting soon because he wanted to update me on that and let me know how that went. And at that time, we're supposed to continue this discussion. So I'm not making excuses, but Officer DRC was the person who I was working with on this, and he had health issues that he was out with. And I will follow up with him. We are meeting next week on that ISO report, and we'll continue this assessment on whether it's a hybrid or a paid fire department and the benefits and, the costs or the projected costs that this could be.
Thank you. I just don't want to lose any traction because it is half year already, and you can rest assured I'll be following up on that.
I totally understand that, and that's fine. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. I am Robert Generke, Gengerke, 77 Arlington Court. And I'm currently the board president for the Homeowners Association for Palmer Square. And I apologize, I missed some of the earlier comments. I understand that my neighbor and friend Jim Liccato already mentioned some of the flooding problems that we're still experiencing after all these years. A couple of folks up there have seen me at this microphone in the past when Greg Bontempo was mayor and our attorney was present. We opposed the project that was the Barclay project, primarily because of the flooding concerns. Obviously, we didn't get very far with that. It was delayed. At one point, everything was canceled. Mayor Hines was mayor at the time. He said it was an unsuitable site. It was very clearly unsuitable for building. That being said, the building is going on, but since they've completed the construction in Middletown across Route 35 at the end of Palmer Avenue, we have experienced almost an exponential rise in flooding problems. As the board chairman, I hear every time there is heavy rainfall or even moderate rainfall, I hear complaints from the homeowners. They all write to the Gmail address I set up for the board, and they're all saying, what are we doing? I can't go in my backyard. It's spongy, it's flooding. The water still wants to drain into the area that's proposed for construction. We are at a stage when they have not yet broken ground. My understanding, and this is a rumor, I don't know it for a fact, that the builder, the owner of the land, may wish to sell it because they may be confronting the same problem that builders in the past have confronted. The ground is spongy. It is a natural retention basin. So before it is too late, and I always go back to the first principle in the Hippocratic Oath, first do no harm. Let's not do any harm. If we could have a moratorium, not that we shouldn't take action now, but perhaps the action is let's find out where the water's flowing, whether this could have been a bad decision. If there is a hard surface put down there, the end result will be that retention basin will now be like a moat. The water will flood again even more around, not only around Palmer Square, it will be intruding onto the other developments along Laurel Avenue. I also heard from a neighbor of ours on Palmer Avenue, a couple of neighbors up Palmer Avenue. They're getting flooded worse than ever. So I would love to hear if you guys would just consider a moratorium on any, it's too late for example, for Middle Road to be stopped. They've laid the foundations. But if you could stop, I can't build an impervious, I can't expand my patio a foot. It's an impervious surface. I might flood Holmdel. So you can see my concern that they're about to put essentially a moat that will cause the flooding to spread farther around the area. Now, we did have a part of the issue corrected when they raised Palmer Avenue. Unfortunately, that did help Middletown at the expense of that little area, which is still a retention basin. And so all the water is draining there. And my concern is if you could consider a moratorium before they continue and lay down that impervious surface, before they increase the flooding, let's find out what can be done. Now, I know that Jim Liccato has mentioned, he told me he had mentioned about devoting some money to desnagging, desilting. Those are good temporary measures. But we do know that there's construction that people want to put up down the road at Potter's Farm. We know that there is and that is on the same water line and will drain into the same waterway and will end up at Palmer Avenue and elsewhere farther down the road. So I'm concerned that what's going on is rather than preserving Holmdel, it's kind of making more of a swamp for the people who are already living in the lower lying areas. And I just wanted to put that forward and hopefully explain a little of the situation, because I'm sure that I only know of one committee member who's actually been to Palmer and seen what it's like. And I would invite you all, if you'd like to, contact Palmer Square. We'll walk you around, or anybody on Palmer Avenue with land that is along the creek there. We'll walk you around. Wear boots. It's muddy. It's like a swamp, especially after the last couple of days. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Robert, I'd just like to say one of the things I did notice, I had Ben Matlack was out with me, our engineer, and it was I think it was a discrepancy with the map that he had from the town, and actually how close the stream was right to your actually buildings. It was literally, people walked out their back door and literally walked into a stream. It's almost like you have a house on the lagoon down the beach, and you walk out your backyard, and 2 steps and you fall into the lagoon.
Yeah.
It was that close, and I saw children sets out there with little playgrounds, and I don't know if I'd let my kids go in the backyard. Get hurt, killed. I mean, it's a lot of water back. And we were on a dry day, right, where it didn't rain, and it was still saturated.
In fact, it was about 50 or 60 feet closer than the maps showed. The stream is literally up by the units. We've had to have 2 trees removed because the homeowner said, that tree's right by the water now, it never was before. I can't risk having it come down on my unit. When I moved there, my son was 6 years old. He used to play with his friends out at this little ditch by the edge of the property. They couldn't go there. By the time he was 10, they could no longer go there. The water had eroded the land by the units at the edge to such a degree that we had basically a little cliff. So for I think we ended up spending about $28,000. We had to create a brand-new underground retention basin so that we could stop the erosion. And they used all kinds of neat technology to do it, low tech, but very smart technology underground to make an underground basin where it could drain. If that could be done next door, I would love to see, and we've often said this, I would love to see that land purchased by the township or by the county and the township together and converted into the retention basin it wants to be.
What land are you referring to?
The land where Barclay was approved.
Right.
That really belongs as one. It is a natural thing, and they're kind of fighting nature doing it. I think that might be why they're sort of hesitating about even putting down that.
Yeah, I don't want to speculate why they are. I haven't heard that rumor, but I do know that there were some, I think, again, I don't know if it was health issues or something had happened with one of the owners of that group, and I know that they had asked for an extension through the one of the boards, and that was granted a 1-year extension on that.
And to your point, the maps are quite outdated. That creek is spreading and coming closer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Anyone else from the public that, yes, sir?
Jim Liccato, 57 Duxbury. Just on that note, I was hoping that we can request a flood map study or an update that the township can go, I guess, to the state. Is that who comes up with the flood maps? Considering, I'm sorry? Is that something that Holmdel can do to make a request that those flood maps be updated? Because, Greg, as you said, when we walked you around that day, it was a fairly dry August day. It had been dry for a couple weeks. And it was the township engineer that opened up the flood map, took a look out, and was amazed. He was expecting to see the Mahoras Creek set back about 75 feet. And then lo and behold, it was a couple of feet. We had all these tributaries that were just a couple of feet from everybody's backyards. So obviously it's not correct. And we're basing a lot of the decisions on construction and projects based on these flood maps that don't really reflect reality. And it's pretty scary. So if that's something that the town can take on to try to request that, I think we'll make smarter decisions. All right, thank you.
Thank you. And again, I don't know that for a fact if they were making any of these decisions based on maps that we had. So I'll take your word for it. I don't know that to be a fact. But regardless, the administrator's writing down your request right there, and we'll follow up on that with him.
All right, I appreciate it. And by the way, at the planning board meeting, the attorney for the Barclay Square did say that they were considering selling the property. So just FYI.
When was that?
It was at the planning board meeting. Kim, you were there that day.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, DJ. You may not have been at that meeting.
That had to be a while ago, right?
Yeah, it
were
was probably
requesting
about 6-8 weeks ago.
They were requesting an extension on the.
Correct. I know that they requested
Right.
an extension, and they were granted an
And the
extension.
attorney did make mention that they were considering selling to another builder at that point.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, right, selling to another. Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Anyone else from the, yes, sir?
Patrick Trisquita, 56 Line Road. I want to commend Mr. Bontempo, Jay, and anyone else that was involved in the library presentation at Bellworks. It was absolutely outstanding. To be back at Bell Labs and listening to a talk was, for me, an educational talk was great after all the historical speakers I've heard at the Bell Labs auditorium. And I thank the rec department and whoever did that. But the speaker was outstanding. The book signing was great. And I'm in the middle of the book about bin Laden. And Dr. Wood described the horn antenna. And I'm absolutely delighted on the direction that the township is taking in regards to the horn antenna. But I did realize that the horn antenna, because of the National Historic Site, and it's really a World Heritage Site, belongs on the DHS terrorism watch list. And I'm going to ask the Township Committee to ask Jay for someone, the DHS, from prior work, I know this, DHS holds a list of places in the United States that can be a target for terrorism. It's very easy to call up the DHS and to mention the horn antenna. Because of the recent profiling that the horn antenna's got, it has now been elevated from just an aluminum horn antenna on top of a hill in Holmdel to really a National Historic Site as well as a World Heritage Site. So I asked the committee to ask the staff to look into getting it onto the watch list for the DHS, for the national DHS. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Jen. You would never do well on Family Feud. You're too slow.
Janet Jackal, 31 Stony Brook Road. I've been listening to people talking about the flooding problems, and I'm a map person. I like to look at maps. And one of the things that's very, very clear is that the water does not know where township boundaries are. Much of the water that is causing the flooding is from Holmdel, but much of it is from elsewhere, a lot of it from Middletown. And then our own water ends up downstream in Hazlet and so on. So as you are looking for the solutions to some of these flooding problems, I'd like you to do what you can to work with the nearby towns, because I don't think you're ever going to have a really good solution unless we don't simply look within Holmdel, but we look at the bigger picture. And that's all.
I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you. Yes.
Kinji, H. Say Street. I also want to echo some of the comments and concerns. I know that Jim and Robert have been here. Some of you may or may not remember, but this started, I remember in 2015 when the Barclay project before was on the affordable housing came independently before the planning board, and it was denied at that point because of flooding problems. And then it got on the affordable housing, and the rest is history. So everything just made it worse, and my heart goes really to these guys over there. But what I want to do is, I know the township attorney gave a lot of remarks about the New Jersey natural gas, and I realize the appeal is still pending. We don't know what the outcome of that, but I do want to thank the township committee, certainly all you up here, your predecessors and all that for everything you've done. This has been going on for some years now. There's been 2 rounds through the zoning board. First time was 2016. I was not involved in that because I was too busy fighting the transmission line on the northern side of Holmdel, and I just couldn't get engaged on 2 fronts. But I remember in the second round, 2018, before the zoning board, this room was open, and it was standing room only, and I remember that a lot of people, and the zoning board twice denied it, and then went to the BPU. And the second public hearing we had was February 2020, and we had a very short notice. We had 2 petitions going on, and I remember I started one electronic one. We had a physical one within like 2 weeks' time. We had more than 1,000 Holmdel residents signing that. So this was something that's major concern to a lot of Holmdel residents. You guys done a lot, and I appreciate it. I know we can't control sometimes the outcome of that, but we do appreciate the effort. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else this evening that needs to, from the public? No? Okay. Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to close this meeting.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?